My name is Peter Drobny Dunaj. I'm an independent analyst. That means that my angle, my point is somewhat different from the majority of the lectures. I will use a device which I hope works. Okay, that's it. That's it's not very good. Never mind. So I'm going to talk about the background of the NATO theaters. In military languages, theaters of war. I simply use the word theaters. Europe. What is NATO is facing in Europe? NATO is facing the #1 problem in Europe is social problems. Quite a few of the lecturers were referring to the integration question, integration of minorities. A certain minority with an I would say alien system of value. What do I mean? I mean that this minority of people want to question the very basic of the democratic society. That could be a challenge NATO and other structures must face. Just one that in Marseille the first language is already Arabic and the second is French. So just let's think about it. It is the question is hello. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So, Eastern Europe. The quick question for NATO and for the European alliance: how to support Kiev going toward a long road to our democratic system, to our Euro-Atlantic integration. But there are many questions. I'm a former journalist. I have many more questions than answers. So, my very first question is, it's an actual one. It's a very timely one. Who has the power currently in Verkhovna Rada? This is the Ukrainian parliament. We don't know. I haven't seen a good analysis of the components of the Verkhovna Rada. So, the second main issue for me is Ukrainian democracy ripe enough for changes to control. That's what my learned colleague from NATO, Paul, has already mentioned, that if Maidan will not see some kind of moving forward, they will go again, and a second turn of Maidan begins. Black Sea region. It's a new center of power in the making. It's a kind of a surrogate NATO. Key players are Turkey, Romania, Ukraine and Azerbaijan. We see a lot of allied warships are in the region, and key energy structures, pipelines, other facilities are in the regions. Middle East and neighboring regions. Also a NATO responsibility, because NATO is directly interested in a Middle East peace, or at least stability. But what we see there are basic changes. For example, the whole map of the Middle East is going to change. What if an independent Kurdish state comes into being, chipping off parts of Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria? What will be with the Sykes-Picot Agreement, which is almost 100 years old and determined the Middle East? Central Asia. Two keywords, terrorism and drugs. What will happen after the Afghanistan drawdown? What will happen with the northern distribution network? This is a key NATO route. Actually, this is a net, multiple roads which are used to withdraw NATO equipment through Russia and through the Baltic states, 3 Baltic states. But I'm not sure that currently this NDN is working or not. If it doesn't work, it means for the NATO hundreds of millions of dollars extra costs. So ISAF drawdown means that local hire and contracting money will diminish. So Afghanistan is going to make a lot of trouble for the rest of the world, for NATO too. As the money declines, people will invest in drugs, puppies. And Afghanistan is already on a global scale is the #1 source of drugs. The difficulty, Mr. Apaturai is a learned colleague of mine, is a former journalist, a very high-ranking NATO official. He said that the cooperation in fighting drug trade has been a casualty of the Russian West End problems. Islamic State. This is the major issue for us, and not Russia. Some questions are, who do we support in Syria? The fronts are very blurred. Different factions fighting against, and sometimes daily situation is changing. And this is a very, very risky business exercise because you always have a lot of collateral damage. Innocent people die. Do we coordinate? I mean, does NATO coordinate with Assad forces? For example, when NATO aircraft bombing Raqqa, this is a Syrian, and at the same time Syrian government aircraft doing the same mission, flying the same sorties, bombing sorties. Is there a coordination between them, or they just risk the collision, or even worse? Shooting each other. Declaring Russian adversary, not a partner, would probably split and weaken NATO's efforts, engagement in fighting global terrorism. Different phases of Cold War. This is just a graphic. Before 1990, this is a very schematic, very rough. That problem. Never mind. So before 1990, we had the NATO-Warsaw Pact, which was balanced by the nuclear deterrence. Currently, we have a lot of pillars, security pillars. This is CFE, this is OSCE, this is NATO, nuclear deterrence. Some of them, are working, some are not. NATO-Russia funding yet is not working, and NATO-Russia Council is also. It's a pity. Some major European events, we all know it, so I will skip it. NATO, this is an important thing. Back to the roots, redeployment to the eastern fringes. As you know, NATO redeploys major assets, air force, air defense, and armored units near the Russian border. It's our origin. It's Poland, Baltic 3, Central Eastern Europe. Hard power, that is NATO, that is military, is gaining strength to back soft power, NGOs and other the political means. NATO southeastern flank, Romania is a key regional power with elements of missile defense system. This is in the Veselu, Romanian small village or a small town, and air and naval assets being deployed. Bulgaria originally was meant to be the second pillar of NATO defense in Black Sea. As we said, it's a very important one. But due to the internal instability in Bulgaria, the country is put, this is my view, my analysis, on a back burner. Hungary, Slovakia, and Czech Republic play an important role as logistic support basis. What General Bridlov, Sakar, who is the Supplied Allied Commander, said about this process, it's a paradigm shift for NATO. It's something very important. Risk of an all-out war between NATO and Russia increasing. CSDO, this is the Eastern NATO, the Russian-dominated NATO, stops talking to NATO. This is very unfortunate. Says the CSDO Secretary General Bortuzhan. There is another one, another meaning, another opinion. The European Leadership Network is a very serious, senior and very powerful structure. By the way, the Latvian ambassador who was talking to us this morning is member of the board of this European Leadership Network. What they suggest for the Russians, they suggest rethink their more assertive military postures, and for the West, they suggest to use diplomacy and persuade Russia to move in this direction. Number two, all sides should exercise military and political restraint. Very wise advice. Number three, also, all sides must improve military communication and transparency. As you see, all 3 points are balanced. So Russians are not the only part responsible for the current problems. NATO, declining defense spending. NATO members comprise 13 of the world's 20 fastest declining defense budget. My learned colleague with James Defense Weekly, Guy Anderson, wrote in September this year. In some way, NATO is indebted to Vladimir Putin because he pulled out the alliance of an identity crisis. NATO now back on the same old road. We will talk about it later. So, another moment. In our region, our countries are in the process, in the midst of the process of getting rid of the Soviet hardware, which still comprises the bulk of armaments in some NATO countries. We are going to buy new and second or even third hand Western systems, like currently the Bulgarians do. They buy third-hand aircraft from Greece. Sorry. Of the EU engine, that means stagnation, hampers this process. Ukraine, NATO allies divided into 3 major groups. We know it. Hardliners, Poland and the 3 Baltic states, and the 3 UK, Canada, and the US, Anglo-Saxon part. Middle of the road countries, most of the European countries, and coalition of unwilling, Hungary, to a lesser extent, Czech Republic and Bulgaria. But let me to remember you that Budapest and the others have to remember that rights and obligations go together. We have not only rights in NATO and in the European Union, but we have obligations. Just to explain this region, I think, this is my point, I think that the more you go from the east to the west, the more you will find hardliners, except for the Baltic states and Poland. But Baltic states afraid of Russia due to historic reasons. The same is basically for Poland. For the other countries, the coalition are unwilling. They are very much dependent on Russian gas and oil. That could be an explanation. Middle-of-the-road countries are, they are dependent on Russian energy supplies, but not as much as Eastern Europe is. And the UK and Canada and the US, they don't know it because they don't buy Russian gas and oil, or very limited quantities. Visegrad 4. There are some differences on Russia within the Visegrad 4. In the Czech Republic, counterintelligence system, BIS, openly accused the country's leaders, first of all, President Zeman, being asymmetric indifference to the issue of security risk coming from Russia and China. In Poland, high-ranking military officer and a lawyer was detained, and Hungary has also his story with the KGB law story. Everybody knows about it. Nevertheless, military cooperation platform is excellent, and economic interests also play a certain role in it. We were talking about it. Military balance, Ukraine versus Russia, because we hear voices of a total war. It's very dangerous, and I think it's hopeless, because as we see, for Russia, Ukraine is militarily no match. These are the data, the numbers are from BBC, so they are reliable. Just one thing I would like to talk about you. It's the Malaysian aircraft, which was shot down over eastern Ukraine. There are too many questions for me. Number one, in all democracies of the West, the principle of innocent until proven guilty is a must, is the base of democracy. And we have to also, because we still don't have absolute clear proof that the Malaysian aircraft has been shot down by the insurgents or by the Russians. We don't know. And there are some other points like Eurocontrol. Eurocontrol didn't close down the airspace because they have very good information, and they were sure that they have no risk of shooting down the aircraft. So the second point is that on 26, you remember there was an intercepted discussion between two rebel leaders about an allegedly shutdown of an An-26. An-26 service ceiling, the service altitude, is at least 10,000 feet lower than the aircraft which were flying the Malaysian aircraft. So it means that they were not capable of doing. They were not. They didn't know what they do. The third point is, for me, this is most important. We haven't seen anything, haven't heard about the frags, the splinters, the fragments of the warheads which allegedly shot down. Because if we will have a report on that, we will know what did, and maybe we will know who did it. Ukraine. Well, the other thing is you can read later, because this one, this presentation will be available for those who are interested in. So, economic strength. Just to compare Russia with Ukraine, I see 4 key markers. GDP growth in Ukraine down to -8, -10% this year. In Russia, it's 0% for this year. Reserves, US dollars, billion. Ukraine has 12.6. Russia has 428.6. Difference is huge. So Russia has a huge reserves. Country rating. Standard & Poor, Moody and Fitch. Europe's weakest economy is Ukraine. Russia is over 1 or 2 notches of a jump. So, public debt, also very important. In Ukraine is 102% this year of the GDP. In Russia is 10%. Huge difference. So overall, the state of the economy, Ukraine's economy is in a catastrophic state. Russia's economy, maybe we may. From the very beginning, I think the Ukrainians committed a strategic mistake, emphasizing military solution. Why? They describe insurgents and separatists as terrorists. Look at most of the respected Western media never uses the word terrorists. They say BBC or they say separatist or insurgent. Number 2, the Kiev government said that Russian regular units, I emphasize regular units, are fighting on the side of terrorists. So point 1 and point 2, then that means that Ukraine is at war with a mighty adversary, with Russia. As we said, for Moscow militarily, Kiev is no match. You cannot fight successfully an adversary which controls at least 170 miles of your border. I'm in eastern Ukraine. So, emphasizing military solution, Kiev drains on scarce resources with almost no money left for solving vital internal problems like gas imports. Economic problems, steeply declining standard of living in Ukraine may erode government support and lead to social tension. That's what Paul has said. The last point, diverting economy, foreign trade from a former major partner, Russia. It's extremely difficult for Ukraine, time and money-consuming process. Almost 1/3 of Ukrainian economy is dependent on Russia. Russia is on the brink of recession. Ukraine is on the brink of collapse. Russia's economy shows crisis, we know. But due to the sanctions, other oil-producing countries are also suffering. Kazakhstan is openly complaining. And this process makes Moscow turning towards China, towards the east. This is not very good. So, the second point of Russia's intentions is to have close cooperation with eastern Ukraine. These are industrial areas. These are areas with shale gas. These are areas with mines, coal mines, and the defense industry companies. And Russia said that the defense industry companies of this area will be integrated into the system. What is Moscow aiming at? Probably, supposedly maintaining tension, creating a presence of frozen conflicts from Lugansk over Donetsk, Mariupol, Odessa to the Pridnestrovia, based on Russian-speaking part of the population. This is 1/4 of Ukraine's population, which is unhappy over the turn of events, or supposedly unhappy. Ukraine's problems would support that. So this is the next one is my hypothetical model, resilience and tiredness. Serious sanctions against Russia could lead to an increase of Moscow's resilience and tiredness of the West. Why? Because Russia has a more or less authoritarian system. And the West has a sophisticated democratic system. So in this part, in this point, authoritarian has advantages over the sophisticated system of the West, because they can handle crisis issues more effectively. This is my point. You see, in 1914, Russia has suffered much more than the West. As the time passes, say, second half of 2015, that means in a year time, could be the break-even point. And from then on, EU and the West would suffer more in terms of money than Russia. Energy. We know that the Ukraine is basically importing gas from Russia. This is a fact. Ukraine debts, a key problem for Ukraine. And what George Soros and the IMF offering to change Romova Baba to Mlintsy. Romova Baba is a Ukrainian delicacy. It's a cake, very delicious. It's made in one of the factories of the Ukrainian president, Mr. Poroshenko. Mlintsy means pancakes. So the Ukrainian debt is like a Romova Baba. It's like that. That means that the pressure on the Ukrainian government to pay back debts is very high, very intense when we have the Romova Baba system. That's one. So what George Soros suggests, swapping shorter-term bonds to longer-term papers. That means that Ukraine debt will form a kind of a pancake. In Ukrainian language, it's mlintsy. That means that short-term burden would be less for Ukraine. Yearly parts. But bondholders should be satisfied with that. And this is the big question. The bondholder, those who gave money, who loaned money to Ukraine, would they accept it? The Soros solution will work if there is a political will on the part of bondholders, that means the lenders, money lenders, to accept increased risks. But will they demonstrate a political will to support Ukraine? I don't know. I'm not sure. Germany, a key player. Germany is the largest, by far the largest Western partner of Ukraine and Russia. So Germany is virtually the only member of the alliance talking to Moscow, I mean on a daily basis, practically on a daily basis. What the Germans say, current Foreign Minister Steinmeier says, avoid wrecking Russia's economy, very important thing. He is the incumbent foreign minister. What said Mr. Genscher, Hans-Dietrich Genscher? He's a former German foreign minister. We should start with verbal disarmament. And the third one, whom I quote, is Mr. Egon Bahr. He is one of the engineers of the Ostpolitik, of the Eastern policy of Germany, which shaped the region since the 70s. His proposition is very important and interesting. He suggests a GDR-type solution for the Crimea. So not formal, but a de facto recognition of secession from Ukraine. Absolutely interesting idea. I don't know. World GDP parity is not new for you. China this year is going to be the #1 power in the world economically. Emerging countries are now generate the biggest part of the world's GDP. Now the last part of my presentation is the future beyond Ukraine. Please do not underestimate Russia's military might, military potential. Russia's strategic triad. These are land-based ICBMs, long-range bombers, and naval assets. These are submarines with nuclear-tipped missiles. Equals that of the West as regards the number and the aggregate yield of nuclear warheads. In the European theater, Moscow maintains an overwhelming superiority regarding number of tactical nukes. Iskander-M is a dumbed-down Russian theater ballistic missile deployed alongside the borders. Very up-to-date, the latest technology. Stealth capabilities, extremely accuracy. Within 7 meters can strike, absolutely. And sources say that Russians could turn it into an intermediate range ballistic missile in a second. Of course, it's symbolic, but if the intermediate nuclear force agreement would be cancelled, which is a no-nonsense option, they could cover most of Europe. So, number 2, Russia's defense industry technology paired with China's resources. This is a deadly mix. Number 3, Russia sets up a foreign legion of its own to fight hybrid wars. Beyond Ukraine, a new world order in the pipe. The nature of things has changed. We all remember Francis Fukuyama's story about the end of the history. Fukuyama later took it back. So the end of the history is not the American type of democracy. It's something we don't know. But nevertheless, the world is going to change. BRIC is coming up. BRIC is Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Times higher growth rate than the US and the Western countries. Key levers of world economy still in firmly controlled by the US, EU, and Japan. But we don't know how long. A very wise man, Dr. Kissinger, said that we are also, the West is also responsible for the escalation of the situation around Ukraine, you see. Spiegel interview asked that, and he said, yes, I'm saying that, absolutely. The second point, Dr. Kissinger said that a new order for a globalized world is necessary. But he said that there are no universally accepted rules. There is the Chinese view, the Islamic view, the Western view, and to some extent the Russian view. So the new world order will be something, a mixture of these. Second point, a new power axis, Moscow being, we talked about. But there is a risk of chain reaction. That means that destroying the European security architecture, which is an ongoing process, as we have seen, could tempt China and Russia to intensify efforts to destroy the current Asian system or to transform it into their sphere of interest. As Mr. Farid Zakaria from the Washington Post, a very prominent analyst says, this is a real danger. So, my last point, NATO-Russian. Which way to go? Options for the West. It's like the traffic lights, red, yellow, and green. Red, containment, confrontation. It pushes Russia towards more authoritarianism. New arms race with risks, anti-terrorism fight, economic burdens, loss of markets, energy security problem for Europe. Not good, I think. Preserving the current status quo. It's a lukewarm solution. Russia and the West also agree to a kind of a modus vivendi. Ukraine will be Finlandized. That means that yes to EU membership or a close cooperation with the EU, but no to NATO. The third option is re-establishment of a limited cooperation. That means acceptance of Russia's legitimate interests. Russia has also legitimate interests. And Ukraine, Russia is very close to each other. And the West accepts that Russia has a different way and a different value system. So this would be the my presentation. If somebody is interested, these are my articles in English and Hungarian. And thank you for your kind attention.